Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ill-Fated Wives of Henry VIII podcast. I'm delighted to introduce my guest, Claire Ridgway, and today we're going to be talking about the importance of history. So welcome, Claire.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, our pleasure. So today is going to be marking the 1-year anniversary of the Ill-Fated Wives of Henry VIII. And obviously, the whole point of the blog is to talk about history. So we're going to be asking Claire some history-based questions. And the first one is going to be, where did your passion for history come from? Obviously, a lot of people, including myself, it started from a book or a movie or a TV show, mine being Horrible Histories. So was it the same with yours, or did you have this from your parents? Where did it all start?
But it actually came from my dad, who studied history at uni and always talked about history and gave me sort of historical facts, but probably more so school, actually. I remember in infant school, we did this huge play in the summer. It was really, really hot. We did this huge play on the school lawn, which was Elizabeth I. And I remember my friend Samantha being dressed as Elizabeth I and walking over the cloak that was laid there. It was just, yeah, it was amazing. And then in junior school, so that was when I was about 6, but in junior school when I was about 11, we did a project on Henry VIII and his 6 wives, and I can just remember being stunned, amazed that this king married 6 wives and executed 2 of them, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like, it wasn't real, it was like fiction, and I couldn't believe that this was history. So I really enjoyed that topic. And then in secondary school, I loved history. I was really, really blessed to have some great teachers who really brought it alive. And I did history O-level and A-level. And for A-level history, we did the Tudors and Stuarts in the English history element. And in the European history element, we did the Reformation, the European Reformation. So it all kind of gelled together. And I'd got a real keen interest in the Reformation because I had a faith as well, so I was really interested in seeing, how the Christian faith had kind of developed at that time. I just fell in love with the Tudor period. Really, it was such a period of change. It was a period that changed England forever, and was just full of these iconic, larger than life characters who were like living this soap opera. And it just, that piqued my interest and sort of never let go. And then, when we moved to Spain, I was freelance writing, and sort of just, I got bored of doing other things and wanted to sort of write about history. And this actually leads into your second question. So I'll let you ask your second question and then I'll tell you more about that.
I have to agree with you that you can't believe Henry VIII had 6 wives. I remember myself, I remember hearing the song, Divorce Beheaded Died, Divorce Beheaded Survived. And you're like, how can this man have married 6 times? It quite amazes you as a young person.
Yeah, it really does.
I think I remember dressing up as Anne Boleyn once and someone told me her head gets cut off, by the way. And I was like, okay. Taking off the outfit, then I was like, which one had the best survival rate? And I think that's what got me into history even more. But to ask my second question, so you've obviously founded the Anne Boleyn Files and the Tudor Society. What was it about creating these 2 brilliant websites that have helped thousands, including myself, as I've just told you with my A-level and my dissertation? What is it that made you want to create these websites? Was it to help people learn more, or was it to help you embrace history more?
Well, the Anne Boleyn Files was for me. I was doing freelance writing. I was doing travel blog articles. I was ghostwriting books. I was writing web content. I was writing all sorts of things. I was writing about cholesterol and prawns and absinthe and all sorts of things. None of them being things that I cared about remotely. But I loved writing. And so sort of, I wanted to find something that I could write about to keep me sane, that I really enjoyed. And we were watching The Tudors at the time, me and my husband. And I think it was Natalie Dormer's performance in the execution scene that provoked me to have a very, very vivid dream. And I had this dream about being a spectator at her execution. Ooh. And now Anne Boleyn, I don't think was Natalie Dormer in the dream. I can't remember what she looked like. All I can remember is the feelings I had, which were of pure horror, because I knew that she was innocent and there wasn't anything I could do to save her. And I can remember trying to scream and nothing happening, nothing coming out of my mouth, and just the pure horror. And I woke up in quite a state, sort of shaking and sweaty and horrible. And I nudged my husband awake and I told him, you've got to help me set up a blog, because he's really techie. It's going to be called the Anne Boleyn Files, and I'm going to research and write about Anne Boleyn and tell her true story. And that was kind of in the middle of the night. And so he went, yeah. And then, but I really wanted to do it. So over the next few weeks, he set up a blog for me. I started reading up about Anne Boleyn, and fortunately, the first book I think I ordered from Amazon was Eric Ives's The Life and Death of Anne Boleyn.
Ooh, yes.
Which I call my Anne Boleyn Bible, because I don't think anyone will ever beat it. I mean, I don't always agree with Ives, but it's so meticulously researched. And that just started me off on a journey of research. And using his primary sources, and that just took me on a journey. So the Anne Boleyn Files was, for me, I didn't think that anybody else was ever going to find it. It wasn't.
Well, I did.
It wasn't written for other people. It was just to keep me sane, and it was amazing when it kind of took off. But the Tudor Society was for other people. I mean, I set it up as a membership website first of all, and it was all about, I wanted to connect people who were all over the world. And I knew, couldn't get to England, couldn't get to see speakers or historical places. It was all about putting them in contact with historians and experts. Whereas now it's an open website, and really I just want it to be a hub of all things Tudor. But in both websites, I really wanted them to be grounded in the primary sources, but for things on it to not be written in an academic heavy way, so that they were accessible to all kinds of people, but well sourced, well referenced, well researched. So yeah, that's how they started out, really.
And I think that's the good thing about especially Anne Boleyn Files, because I remember using it when I was in sixth form, which is maybe 4 or 5 years now, and I just remember that it was the first site that I found that I could understand everything without it being, heavily written in academic tone. It was easy to find the sources and everything, so I didn't have just one site to look at. I had many, and I just remembered looking at it and going, wow, I don't have to look at any other sites now, everything's on here. And since then it actually inspired me to create my own website, so I think I have you to thank for that, because there's something about history that there's never too much of it. I think is you can write forever about it, and you can spread more awareness about it, which I think leads into my next question of writing history books. And you have become a bestseller with your books. You've written so many non-fiction books over the years, especially on the Boleyn family. And for many book lovers like myself, writing history books, not even just non-fiction but fiction as well, is a big dream of ours. But some of us are not perhaps ready to do it. We're not sure how to do it. And some of us are worried that we might be rejected, perhaps because we're not experts in the field, or we don't know what counts as an expert. What would be your advice to somebody such as myself wanting to write a history book, and how they might go about that?
Well, I would say to just write, really. That's my top advice. I mean, I did it all accidentally. I mean, I remember my teacher when I did a story when I was 11, and my teacher saying, one day, Claire, I'm going to see your name in the bestseller lists.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was just that, and that's kept me going, because I always wanted to be a writer. But I published accidentally, because when was it my first book came out? It was the Anne Boleyn collection, which was just a collection of blog articles. It was my friend Linda just said to me, I'd met Linda through the Anne Boleyn files. She was an avid follower. And she said, I really think you should put some of your most popular blog articles together in a book. I think your followers would love that. And so I did that, and I knew that nobody would be interested in publishing it, that no publisher is going to publish just a collection of blog articles that are already out there, you know, freely available on the website. So I self-published it, and it just went mad. And I think it's sold stupid numbers, hundreds of thousands now. It just went completely ballistic. And then, of course, I got contacted by publishers. I was in talks with an agent and everything, because I'd done that. And I think it was all accidental, but I think the key to that being successful was the fact that I'd started blogging. I'd got a following. I was on social media. You know, when I blogged, I shared links to my blog posts on, you know, Twitter, Facebook. I'm now on Instagram, and I'd got a following. I'd got a platform. So when I released my book, I'd got followers who wanted to buy it.
You had an audience already.
Yeah. So that is key, I think, to before, and it was all accidental, but I think for someone that is planning a writing career, planning to bring out a book, start blogging, start sharing stuff on social media, start a YouTube channel or TikTok or anything to get out there and build up an audience that are going to be hungry for your book when it comes out. And I just decided to say no to the publishers that were contacting me, because none of them could match the kind of the royalties and the control that I had with being my own publisher. And so my husband and I ended up setting up, well, Tim's the CEO, Made Global Publishing, to also help other people publish their work and to give a sort of fairer deal to authors. Because I just didn't want to give up control of my work or to accept whatever 5% royalties. And, you know, one publisher didn't want to publish my books as Kindle books, whereas I knew that 70% of my market was Kindle. Yeah. And so I didn't want to go down the route of giving everything to a publisher. I wanted sort of control, and it's worked out really well. So yeah, I'd say write and write and write. I don't believe in writer's block, because I believe that you may not have any inspiration for one particular project one day, but you can still write. Yeah. You know, I think it's like training for anything. I'm also a runner. I train for running. So I think just you have to train, you have to practice. So I would say just write every day, whether it's a journal, anything, just write. Get a platform, connect with people, make relationships with people, and with other bloggers as well. Again, I did that accidentally, because when you're in the Tudor history world, you get in contact with other bloggers, with other authors, other YouTube channels and that. And, you know, I've made some great friends through doing that. But yeah, practice writing. Don't ever stop writing, and if it's your dream, don't ever let go of it, because you will do it. If you're, you know, if it's your proper dream, you will do it one way or another, whether it's self-publishing, going with an independent publisher, you will do it. So don't ever give up.
I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear, is that you can do it no matter what. I remember I've got one of my friends that I've made through the creation of the Ill-Fated Wives of Henry VIII, and she wants to write about how the French have had an impact on certain Tudor figures such as Anne Boleyn. And I just remember her saying, oh God, I've not got a history degree, I've not got this and this. And I think I remember saying to her, just write. Because
Mm.
these days, I think you don't need to be, this might sound wrong to some people, but I don't think you need to be, the top historian in Tudor history. You just need to know your stuff and research
Yes.
it and show it. And I think that's something that a lot of people think is going to hold them back, is not being a Tudor historian. So that's something that I think a lot of our readers are going to be so glad to hear you say, is that you can do it regardless.
You can. I
And
mean, I haven't got a degree in history. My degree is in religion and education. It's not in history. I haven't got a master's. I haven't got a doctorate. I'm not an academic.
mm,
But then my market is an academic. And but I also would say, if you want to write non-fiction, is to ground yourself in the primary sources, teach
mm,
yourself how to use the primary sources as well. Don't rely on secondary sources, because there's so many mistakes get repeated in history books. You'll see the same thing coming up again and again, and it can be a myth, but it's
mm.
become kind of fact because so many people have repeated it, and you'll end up repeating it. So yeah, another bit of advice is, if you're doing non-fiction, is to really use the primary sources, because you never know what you'll discover in the primary sources as well.
I
But
think I
yeah,
remember,
don't let lack of qualifications stop you either.
I think I remember reading once in a history book, as somebody actually believed that Anne Boleyn had a sixth finger, and I was like, oh God, this person clearly
Yeah.
hasn't seen that this is myth. But yeah, I definitely think that's something helpful, and I think people just need to get out there and show what they're made of, because there's never too many books on, say, Anne Boleyn's got so many books out there on her, but there's so much
Mm.
stuff to talk about. Just because it's
Yes.
been done already doesn't mean you can't, and we've already had new discoveries coming out, so
Mm. Yeah,
doesn't mean you can't
definitely.
find something new to talk about. But for the next question, talking beforehand, are you talking about how you wanted people to learn more about Tudors? You've recently just launched the Rise of the Tudor Dynasty history course, which allows people to learn more about, like, most dangerous period in
Mm.
British history, the Wars of the Roses, which I absolutely love. I can't get enough of it, even though it does sometimes boggle my brain. As well as the rise of the Tudor dynasty, um, because of that, and it allows people to learn it from their own homes. Why is it, do you think, that it's so important to encourage others to learn more about history and the events of the past? What is it about history that makes it so vital to learn about?
Well, I suppose you can say that we learn from history. We learn a lot about, well, history repeats itself all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So I
especially with
think,
Henry VIII.
well, yeah, I think we can learn a lot about the past and people's actions and the consequences of those actions. But for me, it's more that history inspires me, and I've seen it inspiring others, and it kind of, this passion that people have for history connects people, and I love that. So it's people's stories, it's the personal stories of people that really reaches out to me through the ages, that you can connect with these people by reading, letters that they've written, works that they've written, and I just love that whole reaching through history to us. So for me, it's more about, it's not really learning about the mistakes that people have made, and perhaps the political kind of angle. It's more about just having a passion for history and sharing that with others. I mean, so I think the Rise of the Tudor Dynasty is my sixth event that I've been doing these online events since February last year.
Mm,
And it was actually the pandemic that caused me to do them, because I used to do physical tours and
mm,
take people to the UK around historical properties and do talks and that. But the pandemic sort of yeah, I couldn't do some because of the pandemic, and then I never felt kind of comfortable going back to it. And so I decided that actually I could reach more people and help more people doing online.
mm.
Um, and that I could get historians to do talks. We could have Q&A sessions with these historians, so people didn't have to travel to the UK to see Tracy Borman, for
Mm.
example, or Owen Emerson, or any of these great historians. They could actually listen to them talk, and grill them, which I love, grilling them with juicy questions in real time, just from being, you know, at home in your favorite armchair with a glass of wine. I just loved the connecting people so that they could learn from the experts, so they could learn from other Tudor history lovers. So it was more about my true sort of passion with the history as well is connecting people and helping people to learn from reputable historians, and also learning from each other as well. I mean, we do these Zoom call discussions, and it's just wonderful how much we can learn from each other as well, because someone will suddenly ask a really kind of provocative question that you've never thought about before, or raise a point that you haven't thought about before, and suddenly you go off at tangents and explore things, and I just absolutely love that. So for me, it's more about the connections and sharing passions and the personal aspects of history as well, how it reaches out to us through the ages, and people are so passionate about it because of that. I think they really can. A lot of people, with Anne Boleyn, for example, she just somehow touches people and kind of doesn't let go. She's so many people's historical heroine, isn't she? Because she just reaches to you.
Yeah, she's very well known as well, and I think that's what grabs you to her. Even with the otherwise, and even other historical figures, sometimes it's just, you know, seeing a TV show that makes people go, hey, I'd like to learn about history. And I suppose that's the good thing about your course is it's not just people who are interested in history, it's people who perhaps don't know anything about history that can go on these courses as well. And they can, everyone has got a fair playing field.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we get people that have been in history for years, and we get people that are completely new and have just read a book, you know, On the Walls of the Roses, and want to find out more, for example. And I just love that. Great.
And I suppose it's also a good thing, especially with the pandemic. A lot of people perhaps have lost the confidence themselves to go to events, or financial issues, or perhaps people who perhaps wanted to go to university to learn about history that don't always want to do something so academic. This course is perfect for them because it's in the comfort of their own home, and it's quite a lot cheaper than going to university, and they get to meet a load more people, and as you just said, get to grill historians, which I absolutely love as well.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like, you know, having your favorite historian in front of you and just asking those juicy questions that you've always wanted to ask them, and then listening to them, you know, actually answer you. I mean, that's fantastic. I love that. But
It's
yeah, I mean, people from Australia, for example, might not always have the money to, you know, flights from Australia, for example, to the UK can be extortionate, and not everybody's got that financial access, you know, to come over and see historians speak, or to visit places. So I like the fact that I can take history to them. So.
Yeah. And especially with what you just said about people from other countries, it's not just people in the UK that want to learn about the Tudors, it's other places as well. And that's the good thing about us being online these days, is we can talk about these things. So we could be talking about somebody in Australia, as you just said, or we could be talking to someone in China, somebody who wants to learn about a different culture, a different history. We're allowed to, and I think that's so wonderful about our platforms. And I love the way that the history community, we don't, I think the term is gatekeeping. We don't withhold information. We don't stop anyone from progressing. It's actually one of the best communities you can have, is the history community. We all want to learn more, and we're not going to hide it, especially with let's say books and things like that. I had somebody who asked me, what's the best book for, you know, Anne Boleyn, for say, and I remember writing them a whole entire list, and they're like, oh, finally someone's giving me some books. And it's just amazing to see that somebody would hold such information back from somebody, especially on history, especially when, you know, it's not ours to keep. We should just keep spreading the word. And that's what I love about seeing so many history courses coming up nowadays, is you don't have to go to uni to learn about something, or you don't even need to do a course. You can just go onto our websites and it's there for you. And I absolutely love that. Oh, I just can't stop saying I love history. You can tell if somebody loves history when they start stuttering, can't you?
It's a true passion.
Oh, I don't think we'll ever get rid of it. I think I remember that I've been banned from my family because I keep saying I love the name Henry. And I remember being told that as a kid, I said, I'm going to name my child after Henry VIII. And now my mum makes me laugh. She's like, please don't name it after a tyrant. And I'm like, I can't name it so many other names because they've all got bad things associated with them. And she was like, you can name it Anne. I was like, oh yes, I could. Just imagine having 6 girls and just naming them after every single one of the ones. That'll be fun to do, but especially with all the history names, there's a lot more of the, as people tend to call them, old names, such as Elizabeth and Catherine. They're coming back into style
Yeah.
now. So perhaps history has had an effect on that as well. So Claire, I just wanted to ask you, obviously we've been blessed recently with so many historical discoveries. The discovery of a necklace dating to the years of Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine of Aragon, a ring that's been linked to the Boleyns, and now Thomas Cromwell's Book of Hours has been found, which is quite astonishing to have found a book that can be linked to, I believe it was Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon.
Yes, yeah.
So it's quite amazing to have found that. How do you think these discoveries help us discover more about history and improve our knowledge of the past?
I think these discoveries, they show us, I mean, so many people say to me, oh, there's nothing new to be discovered in Tudor history. You know, there's nothing new to be written. There's just nothing new. No one's going to find anything now. And these discoveries have just proved them completely wrong. You know, you never know what's hiding in private collections, in people's attics, in bank vaults. And so I just love that there's these new discoveries being made, that people like, you know, Kate McCaffrey are working hard, sort of bringing these things to us and exploring them. And I think they show us that there's always more to be found, and they really challenge our preconceptions about historical personalities as well. You know, views that we might have held for a long time suddenly get challenged by these new discoveries. I think that's wonderful. So yeah, our views, our preconceptions being challenged by them, and we learn so much more, because especially with these personal items, you know, books of hours, these give us, you know, personal insights into people. I mean, I remember going to Hever Castle. I was so lucky to be invited to go and hold Anne Boleyn's books of hours. And that was incredible, because as Dr. Owen Emerson, who viewed them with me, as he said, you know, Anne's DNA is all over them. These were personal items that she would have used numerous times a day that was special to her. So I think, you know, I talk about them sort of reaching through the ages and that connection that can be made. And so these objects that are special to people, that were special to people, you know, just hold so much. There's nothing like sort of seeing them and holding them and making that connection to that person through the ages. So they can teach us so much. But yeah, personal objects particularly, because you've got that personal insight, especially religious objects, you know, into people's personal faith as well. And the inscriptions in them as well, what people are thinking at the time, what do they mean by the words they wrote in them. So yeah, I just love it. And now we just need the full length portrait. Well, it's not full length anymore because it was cut down. But there is a portrait of Anne Boleyn by Hans Holbein the Younger that was full length, that's got cut down, got sold at auction, has disappeared probably into a private collection. I'd love that to be found. So we all need to be searching our attics.
I think that's why so much money's put into, you know, history and searching for new things, is that they can tell us so much. And especially what you just said, I am so jealous of you being able to hold Anne Boleyn's Book of Hours, is you feel like you're holding part of their life as well, because these people lived 500 years ago, but we still don't know certain things. There's so many unknowns, especially like one of the most well known mysteries is the Princess in the Towers. We don't know if that is them, and the fact that we have an opportunity to learn if it is or not. I obviously know that King Charles has given permission for there to be for them to be examined DNA. That's why it's important that we find out more. And I think people think that when you talk of history is, oh, what more can we learn? And we can't find out certain things. We can find out more. We might not particularly be able to find out the exact answer of, it's like asking how many mistresses did Henry VIII have throughout his life. We aren't going to know the exact answer, but we're going to get a closer estimate through examining documents. And there's so many things, and especially with people nowadays, some of these objects and these discoveries can link them to their past. And I remember seeing so many people saying, oh, I'd love to find out if I was, descended from somebody in the Tudor era. And I'm especially like that. I'm drilling my mum to find out, because she's got to the 17th century. She needs to get less. She needs to go more. And it's such a big part of people's lives, is to find out more about history, because sometimes that can help us discover why we are as we are.
And I think it's wonderful as well. There's not just these discoveries with like these objects being found, but portraits are being tested as well to find out, because obviously they're always circa whatever, and especially with the Anne Boleyn portraits, they're all thought to be from Elizabeth's reign or later. But we don't know that. We know that the National Portrait Gallery one now dates to Elizabeth's reign because it's been tested. But what about the Hever Rose one, for example? It would be wonderful if that got tested. Is it contemporary? Could it be contemporary? I'd love to know. So there's so many more discoveries that can be made with existing objects that are there just by sort of testing them. So yeah, it's history it's a living subject, isn't it? It's not dead at all. And there are still discoveries to be made. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next few years and more news coming out about the Tudors.
I would honestly love, if it was possible, to find Anne Boleyn's body. That would be the one thing I wish we could find. But
well, we know where it is, but I personally, I don't want it to be messed with, because the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula in the Tower is just, it's so beautiful, it's so peaceful, and the floor, I mean, that's covering her resting place is historical as well. It's a Victorian tiled floor, beautifully done, and then you've got those tiles on concrete, and then you would be messing with it just for our curiosity. I would support it if restoration work had to be done and that floor had to be messed with, like it was in the 1870s when they did exhume the bodies. I would support it if other work had to be done, but I wouldn't support just, wrecking it and digging her up just to examine her now. If something could be done, I don't know, without moving the floor, with our science of today, scanning the area, I don't know, but I don't think it could be done, because all the bodies we know were put in lead coffers before they were put in wooden coffers. I just don't think there's anything that can be done without destroying a beautiful resting place.
I think I do agree with you, because as much as I've said I would like that to come out, that you've got to take it with a grain of salt. As much as we would like to rip apart the chapel to see it, at the end of the day you're going to ruin something else entirely, because that place has history. So I think that's why there's only so much can be done, especially with we want to find this place, but we'd have to destroy something that's been built entirely. It doesn't make sense. But with other discoveries, things that like finding objects is probably a lot easier, because you don't have to destroy things, you just need to research where they are. And I think that's something that a lot of people are a bit iffy on. I think people are like, oh, it's just a building, why does it matter? But then you have to realize that it means something. This is someone's burial ground. You wouldn't go to the cemetery and take somebody up unless it was absolutely necessary. So I think that's something that's is a bit controversial, but it's the same time I stand by it of don't bring somebody up unless it's absolutely necessary, like the whole church is going to fall down. But with Anne Boleyn, I don't think we're ever going to get a true answer for everything with her. And it's the same with other people. And that's what makes them so mysterious. And I kind of like that they're somewhat mysterious, because if we knew the answer to everything, would there be any mystery left in it? Who really knows?
And it's great that people have different views as well. I mean, that's what makes history a living subject as well, is the fact that we can all have different views and we can all argue our different views, you know, using the primary sources. So yeah, I love that. And yeah, if we knew all the answers, then it wouldn't be quite as interesting.
And I think I like that history allows us to, there's a lot of people that say, oh, my favorite person in history is this, or I really didn't like, you know, that this person did this. And it creates a kind of community almost, because you have somebody who perhaps like us, we love Anne Boleyn, but there's also people that are perhaps more, well, I quite enjoy the elegance of Catherine of Aragon, for example. It doesn't mean that we don't see the people's validity. It's just that we're so invested in these people's stories. And it's amazing to think that these people 500 years ago might have wondered, will I be remembered in history? What would be my significance? And they'd probably be amazed if they could see that there's so many people looking into their lives going, but why did she choose to say that at that particular event? Or why didn't she do this? Was they probably just said it in the heat of the moment and didn't know that. It's quite extraordinary to think that these people didn't realize that they're kind of celebrities in our world almost.
And
that's something that I think a lot of, especially with Anne Boleyn, she'd be quite proud to know that her story has gone on, because although she died an absolute tragic death and probably thought Henry's going to get rid of me, as he tried to do, he tried to erase her. Obviously we know he couldn't completely. She'd be quite amazed to know that her legacy has lived on, and that she can continue to inspire us, because she does inspire us a lot. And the fact that especially with, I remember reading an article and somebody said that that the things that the women of the past got punished for, especially Anne Boleyn, something that she didn't even do, especially with the adultery, we take for granted quite now when it comes to things like that. And it's amazing to see the importance of it. And I think that's why so many people are invested in history, is something is important to the Tudors. It's quite important now still with childbirth and having an heir, something that was the essence of their life. Whilst we still probably do take it as important as it is, it's not as important. And it's amazing to see the progression of how we went from children are the absolute must in life to we can have other things. And that's the beautiful thing about history, I think. It's just amazing to see. And I think that those women will be proud. It's not just the women, but I think other people as well. And we also take into consideration Elizabeth I, how she's also stood up in history for things that she did that other women nowadays can do. Like before, she was, especially with Mary I as well, they were strong queens in their own rights. They showed we don't have to be meant to do that. And they'd probably be proud of the women of today being able to do things that they can't. And I think that's something that when we take a look at history, we have to remember and always have that in our mind when we look at history and we go, oh, they should have done this, or why didn't they do that? We're in a different mindset they are. And I think that's something to think about. And I think that's a perfect way to end this, actually, is to say that's why history isn't so important. So I would just like to thank you so much, Claire, for joining us today, especially on.
It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
And I very much enjoyed it too. I hope I haven't stuttered too much.
No, you've been fine.
I think a lot of our listeners and our readers will be absolutely thrilled to hear what you have to say, and will take your opinions and your views to heart, and perhaps that will inspire them to become a famous author like you have, or to start their own history journey. Perhaps we've inspired
that would be lovely.
So just like to say thank you, and hope everybody who's been listening has a lovely day. And this is Ill-Fated Wives of Henry VIII signing off.